Welcome into the 9th annual Longwood Media Showcase Virtual Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Stouffer. Thank you for joining us here on YouTube. For those of you familiar with the Longwood Media Showcase, we're doing things a little bit differently this year. Right now, May 2nd, 2025, from 5 to 8 p.m., we are premiering all 17 student-produced documentaries live at the Longwood Center for Visual Arts. So if you're in town, come on down. Free food, open bar, come check out some amazing student documentary work. But we also wanted to make an opportunity for those of you living in YouTube land to be able to watch the premiere of these documentaries simultaneously. So if you stay tuned to this broadcast for the next about 2.5 hours, you'll be able to catch all 17 students-produced documentaries from the spring of 2025 here. If you like their work, go ahead and YouTube their names. You'll be able to see their documentaries on their channels and check out some of the other work. But we did want to bring you the premiere of all of these documentaries from COMM 445. So stay tuned and enjoy.
San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're gonna meet some gentle people.
Obviously, I knew of Harvey Milk and that queer history, but I really didn't know much.
My name is Harvey Milk, and I'm here to recruit you.
Harvey Milk on his way to City Hall to be sworn in as a supervisor in San Francisco.
You must come out. Come out to your parents. Come out to your friends, if indeed they are your friends. Come out to your neighbors. Come out to your fellow workers. Once and for all, let's break down the myths and destroy the lies and distortion.
Then, an ashen-faced Supervisors Board President, Dianne Feinstein, made the news official.
As President of the Board of Supervisors, it's my duty to make this announcement. Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed.
What we were communicating was, this is the story. This wasn't the story, it was a story. And it was a story that was a very well documented and told story.
Because, as Harvey put out, it's like, come out, let your family know, let your friends know, so that they know somebody that's gay.
Just continuing to be as out as possible is the best thing that we can do.
San Francisco's given me a family, a chosen family, in particular the queer community has taken me in and taken care of me, loved me unconditionally. And so it feels like this is my home because my family's here.
It's a place where people come together with a compassion for each other and a way of thinking about other people. Just an awareness of other people and what they're going through.
And I think the magic is the fact that especially as a queer person, everyone is 100% themselves. I met all these people who were working in politics and specifically a queer focus in politics, who were doing all this advocacy in the city, and I was like, this is everything I've dreamed of.
I ran for supervisor and nearly lost. My opponent was a gay man, and now we actually have 3 gay men on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and that representation is great. But when it's only white gay men who've been elected to the Board of Supervisors, I think that says a lot, especially when there's 3 of them at one time.
If you are someone who is like not a man and not a white man, like probably 80% of the time you are going to have to manually like carve out space for your voice to be heard, which is also like deeply uncomfortable to do.
How to move that in a different direction without shutting the male white voice up is one I don't know about.
And now it just seems like nobody cares anymore. I think because of what's going on in our government, it's opening up spaces for the gay community, the disabled communities, the poor communities to rise up and make their voices heard.
I think there's ways to measure voice in social media, email lists, being reported on in the news, media clicks, large informal social network of friends and family and coworkers.
And or be connected to people in power who will like make space for you to have your voice.
But the reality is that talk about things like intersectionality or, identify with multiple minority classes or groups. If you identify as a woman or a person of color or someone who is an immigrant or undocumented and trans.
They were not the people that had the microphone. They weren't the people being interviewed in the New York Times and the LA Times and the San Francisco Chronicle. And different communities
have been brought up at a real deep level to think that they are second, because that's what it has been structured. We're aware that is not right. We're aware that that needs to change.
There's a lot of things that create that. Certainly there's privilege and access, like what people's abilities are to engage. Like if someone is living in supportive housing, maybe they're disabled, maybe they are poor and work, 3 or 4 jobs. And so they don't really have time or capacity to take time out of their day to do interviews. They may not have access to the technology to be able to get their message out there. I mean, there's so many barriers.
Becoming positive in the early 90s, seeing what was going on, listening to your story, or white gay men's stories, allowed us women to say, we want what they have. And you were the template, and we just came along, grabbed onto your coattails, and said, what are you doing for this? What are you doing for that?
21-month-old Angelica Radican is a normal, healthy child. Mother Patty considers that a small miracle. Patty is HIV positive.
And then we started telling our own stories. For a while, we couldn't tell our stories.
It's not enough for me to just scream and yell into the wind. I feel like I have to, for my own sanity, be a part of proactively creating change. And
I want to be part of building the lesbian community in San Francisco. I want to be part of Decade of the Lesbian. Fuck, you're the lesbian. Mama, it's Decade of the Lesbian.
Through voting, through participation in our electoral system, by showing up at boards and commissions and hearings and participating in the process, because honestly that's how change is made.
Maybe our voices will cut through.
Summertime will be a loving there.
I think the Division III athletic experience is very unique. It's pure. I think that the kids that decide to continue to play at this level do it for the right reasons, for the love of the game. And there's also phenomenal opportunities in the country to be able to get fantastic education. So those were some of the things that intrigued me the most. And part of it also is that that's where my interest was. From the recruiting side of things as a high school senior, moving into the college world, those were the schools that reached out to me, and the ones that I was deciding from at the time were Division III schools. But there's still a lot of benefit to it, right? When we talk to recruits, it's, you know, when you're looking at your college experience, we're asking them, what level do you want to play at, not what division do you want to play at. There's plenty of schools in the country that have a very high level, whether that be on the field or off the field, of an experience for student athletes. And I've been very fortunate in some of the places that I've been and have had some really good experiences at the Division III level.
Coming in here, they preach the brotherhood, and you don't really understand, like at a smaller school, how easy it is to form a bond with everybody. And I felt like that was like the biggest thing for me coming here. I was like, hope I'd be able to do that, and I felt like I did. And being able to grow into a leader, like I never thought I'd be a captain going into my senior year, and I ended up getting voted captain this year, and I feel like as a leader it's helped a lot. I mean, for everything in life, and I just feel like that's just been the biggest thing for me this year, is being a leader and being able to keep the team together, keep it as a whole family.
D3 athletics, it's not just about the sport. You know what I mean? You're developing relationships that are going to last you a lifetime, even past the sport. You know, whether that's with your coaches or with your teammates, or even just, you know, the faculty that help you with your performance, like the training room staff, the field crew, everything like that. Like, it's such a tight-knit family. You know what I mean? Because everybody's working together to get a product, which is game day.
The interaction and the ability for our students to be able to come here and get a phenomenal education and play the sport they love, I think is a huge draw, right? It allows us to maybe recruit some kids and get some kids here that are potentially considering some other larger institutions, but you know, they have the ability to continue to do what they love on the field. So it's a huge part of who we are, right? Whether it be football, basketball, tennis, soccer, lacrosse, baseball. I mean, there are a lot of student athletes running around on this campus, and it's with the history that we have here, particularly within the football program. It's a huge part of the culture here at Hamden City.
So I think it was last year or the year before that, we were ranked like number 8 when it comes to in the country when it comes to student involvement in athletics. Our culture here for people coming to games is, I'd say, second to none. Nowhere smaller college, but that means that everybody's wanting to come to sporting events. You know what I mean? We've got, the camera can't see it, but right over there we've got a hill, and that hill's packed out on game days where we've got students, other teams. When they're coming from practice, they'll stop right there and cheer us on. The fans, the locals come from in town, they come and watch the games. You got kids who running all throughout these bleachers going on right here, and they'll be watching the games and cheering us on. Like, this is such a small town. It's an even smaller institution that everybody's involved. Everybody wants to, you know what I mean, wants you to do well. So everybody wants to come see you perform.
From the past, we definitely have like more positive energy. Like in the past, it was kind of just like focused on the other team. So now it's just kind of like about the group and everyone just working together and just cheering everyone on, rather than like you kind of rooting against the guy that's in your spot or something so you can eventually take his spot. It's kind of just rooting for everyone and just hoping we win more games rather than individual stats.
We've got new coaches on the staff this year, new head coach, new hitting coach, and one of their philosophies are staying neutral. You know, not being too high, but not being too low, staying in the green for the entirety of the game. And I feel as though that's helped this team with its success so far. You know, staying in the green, that kind of just means just flowing. You know, our energy is insane this year. You know, we've got high energy from the get-go, and we will maintain that energy even through the middle parts of the game where one would think that the energy is supposed to die down, but we're still keeping it going. Even if we get punched in the face early on, we have that energy and we have that confidence in our ability, we'll go right back and punch the other team in the face, you know. And that all stems off of energy. Like, the energy this year has been flawless, I'd say.
So we have smaller class size at the D3 level, so like we're really close with our professors, which is kind of unique compared to other big schools where they have to kind of just like miss and figure it out on their own. Here we communicate with our professors like when we're missing, when we have practice, and they kind of help us out, and they let us go with office hours. And there's other things that we can communicate with them. We have good deans, and our coaches have to let us go to academics. It's not like at a bigger school where it's kind of like athlete first almost. Here it's more academics, which is more important to me anyways. I just got to play baseball in college as well, so I feel like the whole D3 aspect will let you focus on academics a little bit more.
I think student athletes label Division III in somewhat of a negative sense, just because we might not have some of the facilities or we can't give athletic scholarships to student athletes out of high school. But there are some really good Division III baseball programs. There's good baseball or good athletics regardless of where you're at. Again, to my whole, what level do you want to play at? Not division, right? There are plenty of programs across the country where there's phenomenal coaches that are going to help develop players that have a reputation for getting the most out of their players. And as far as getting to the next level, there's plenty of guys who have played Division III baseball that have gone on to play at the professional level. It's harder, right? And the exposure is not quite as much there, but if you're good enough and you find the right spot where you're playing within a program that's going to get recognition, that's going to develop you, and that the coaching staff has relationships and the ability to get you in front of, you know, people at the next level, if you're good enough, you're going to be able to take that opportunity.
D3 athletics is very competitive. One may not think so just because we're not always on the big TV and we're not always broadcasted on the social medias or whatnot unless we do something huge. But Division III athletics are very competitive. The talent is there. So just because one may play Division III athletics, that doesn't mean that they should be discouraged about their ability. You know, obviously you've got more pressing things, you know, to worry about. There's the classroom, there's, you know, this, that, and the third. But when you hop onto the field or to the court or to the rugby pitch, you've got that athlete mentality that lets you know that I'm going to go out there and compete. That's all that sports is. We still want to go to our College World Series, the Division III College World Series, and compete there. We want to win our conference championship, you know, be the best that we can be with what we're given. We're D3. We knew that when coming in here. We just continue to compete every day, try and get better every day.
Hey, Tigers on 3, 1, 2, 3, Tigers! Two.
Welcome to Charlotte County, a small, historic town where I was born and raised. Beneath the old brick buildings and sidewalks lies the history of segregation within the educational system. I'm going to introduce to you the story of the first and only high school established in Charlotte County for African Americans, where former students will tell their stories of the glory days and where you'll witness the transition and establishment of a lifelong landmark. This is Central High History.
Central High School was established in the 30s, actually. It was a result of His family named Smith. They donated some land. His daughter Elizabeth that eventually gave the land to the blacks in the community. As a result of that, they were able to build this high school on it. Now through the years, trying to get it done, the Jeffries were very instrumental in raising funds actually to try to start with the building of the building. And I believe in 1939, this when it was completed.
Now let's discover what life was like in school.
I attended Central High School at 1960. Scared to death, totally frightened. We were all elementary school kids that moved up to Central High School. To me, that was like a big university sitting on the hill in 1964.
When we got to Central High, we were changing classes, whereas in the elementary school, you stayed in one class all the time. But when I came over to Central High, each class you had to move to a different room. So I had several different teachers, whereas at the elementary school, I had just that one teacher.
Throughout the day, we went to those 4 subject areas. We had English, math, science, history. We also had the business department. And we also had a band class, band court, and marching band. And that was really a big thing to be a part of.
I really enjoyed the typing. Well, I could type 75 words a minute, and I could type on a blind typewriter. The teacher was very strict, but I guess that helped me to be able to type as well as I could, or type as fast as I could.
I did play basketball when I was at Central High, and I was a cheerleader. We cheered at the games, and we would have practices where we would learn to cartwheel and learn different chairs.
Now I signed up and made the very first school football team. Before then, we had only had baseball and basketball. But we had a teacher that came in later on during my high school years, and he got a football team together, so I did sign up, and I made the team.
Times of segregation.
I didn't think it was, good that they didn't want their children to go to school with the black students.
The black kids went to the black school, and the white kids went to the white school, and the white people really didn't mingle that much. We would throw hands up and wave at each other when they passed the road, but other than that, I didn't mingle with the white that much.
At that time, we didn't have a relationship with the white students at Randolph-Henry. We would bus to school, and Randolph-Henry was on the other end of Charlotte Courthouse, and Central was on the other, so we never went by the school. So I never saw the school, and I didn't have any relationship with the white students.
Well, that time, young, eager, and ready to learn, fun-loving, things were happening around us that quite a few of us didn't understand, really. We knew that things were different, but we didn't understand what was going on when. But discovered that we were different, but not different, but it treated us differently. But I remember going to the store one time with my mom. There was a sign that said, colored only. And it said, white only. And that sign was there all the time, but I never paid attention to it until I started going to school and was able to read. So I asked her, what does it mean, color only? And she explained it, said, we are not allowed to go in the white section. We can only go in the colored section. We could only stand there at the colored window and point to what we wanted. And then, of course, the store owner would pick it up and put it in the bag, and we'd get to let it.
I remember, black people couldn't go up in the restaurant. If they ordered food, they had to go around to the back and through a little little cubby hole to receive their food and make their order. But we could go around the front of the building and we could see people up in the restaurant, white people up in the restaurant. I remember that clearly.
That sort of bothered me greatly, and it still does now. The unfairness and the equal but unequal opportunities of provided education for the black children. And that separation, well, to me, it was okay because we didn't know anything different. We didn't know we were supposed to be together because we were trying not to be together, to be separate from the white people. So as I grew older, I started paying more attention to things of that nature, like the school and the funding process and how we were getting less money and they were getting the founders of more money to go into that indicator.
If the resources were the same opportunities that we had, that the white students had, then it would have been great.
The implementation of integration.
I attended the Central High School until the year of '69, and that was the year they made everybody integrate. So the year of '70, I started at Randolph Henry. Before they made everybody integrate, they gave students a choice that if you wanted to go to Randolph Henry, you could. Well, but only the smart kids went on their own. I hadn't been used to being around white people, so I felt a little out of place when I went to Randolph Henry. But other than that, after being there a while, I adjusted to it.
Because of the integration of schools in 1969, that led to the closure of Central High School. But all was not lost. The building was later transformed into an early learning center for children to start preschool. To preserve the history, they transferred everything over to a building that once served as the bus shop and vocational building for the school, and created a museum to hold its history, including diplomas, trophies, photographs, and more.
In 2015, I volunteered to work with the museum. They had all of this material and everything scattered all over the floor. They refurbished the building and put the materials in here, but it wasn't in a display, man. So I decided I would put up what you see today and help make it become a museum. We have fundraisers like, we have a bingo once a year. We have bingo, that's it. Same Virginia. In addition to that, we have Black History Month every year. And this year we have it at the Bluestone Harmony Baptist Association in Hayville, and that's free to the public. So through donation, we give back to the public as well. So we were put here not to just have a building, but here to provide for the community and then become a vital part of the community.
This museum is not only a part of Charlotte County, but it is a part of history that will forever have its mark here in the community and in the lives of those who once attended Central High School.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee.
All right. Let's spread a little love all over the
Dolores Brown, my birth given name, started my early education in Charlotte County, Virginia, in Saxe, Virginia, attending two-room brick school called Galilee School, doing segregation, doing Jim Crow. It was 2 rooms. We had an outdoor toilet. We had an outdoor pump.
And so when we talk about what schooling looked like then, and very, very basic, I mean, amenities were very poorly funded. It really wasn't spectacular.
And every day, one of the things that stands out in my mind when I first started school was we had to say our chores. We had to say my fingernails are clean, I brushed my teeth, my hair has been combed, and I have on clean underwear, okay? We had to do that every day. Then we had to raise our hand and say Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, all right? And then as the day progressed on, they gave us book to read. Some of the books that I first read was Fun with Dick and Jane, all right? And with Fun and Dick and Jane, it was all white people. There was blonde hair. There were no black people in the books. There were no black images in the book. And we read out of those books all through the 1st through the 4th grade. And then one of the first black books that I got introduced to was called Little Sambo. And that book, when I think about it now, it just kind of turns me off.
Separate but equal accommodations were okay for black and white individuals. Separate was very, very obvious and apparent. The equal was kind of the bit more ambiguous because in large part, equality and separate but equal depended on who was making the definition.
What they did was built new schools, and I went to Bacon District Elementary School, which was still in Saxe, and that school is still operating right now. And then I went to Central High School in Charlotte Courthouse, Virginia, which was still segregated. I graduated from there in 1965. That class was all black, but I did graduate at the top of my class, okay? I think I might have been number 3. And that's why Miss Irma Blackwell, who was superintendent of the black schools, said, okay, you're going to apply to Longwood.
So when colleges at that time, in a lot of capacities, were starting to try desegregation, they started with kind of grad school. The first African-American undergraduate students in the late 1960s. There was a student admitted, I believe, in 1966 or 7. That student did not finish.
When we got the letter back and it said I wasn't accepted, and okay, you know, being a black and doing Jim Crow times, I didn't really see the significance of all of what was happening because I was only like 16, 17 years old. But Miss Blackwell was upset. She was very, very upset. She said, I'm going to find out what's going on with this. Okay. And she said, get in the car. I got in her car and we came over here to Longwood. She put me out in the area, like where the rotunda is, I was seated out there from the registrar's office. And I saw all these white students going by. They were looking at me. And the look on their face was, you know, like, what are you doing here? Or why are you here? But I sat there patiently and I waited. And when Miss Blackwell came out storming out the doors, and she said to me, you did not get accepted, quote, because you were colored. Miss Blackwell was just as disappointed, and my parents were disappointed. But I had also, you know, doing that. Okay, what you do? My dad said, you keep on moving. So you go to Virginia Union. And so what happened, I went to Virginia Union for a year, and then I ended up getting married. And I did not finish my education at Virginia Union University. I had a daughter, which is Cosette Duchon, and then I went on for a number of years without having finished my education. And it dawned on me, I wanted to get my degree because I wasn't furthering myself without having that degree. I told my mom that I wanted to go back to school. And my mom said, you didn't go when we was paying for it. How you gonna pay for it now? I found a way to pay for it. And then she told me, she said, you're not gonna graduate from there because you never finished anything you started with your education. And that just hurt me. That was so discouraging. the other friend and I applied to Virginia Commonwealth University. 2 hours every single day, because both of us was determined to finish school. I finished my year at VCU. And when they had the graduation, and I had to walk across that stage, and they handed my degree to me, and my mother was in the audience, holding my daughter and my father, and I came down off the stage. I said, Mama, you said I won't go do it. I did it. Here's my degree, okay? So I had my undergraduate degree in Richmond and rehabilitative services that I got from VCU.
I watched my mom work many long hours, many countless hours in achieving the goals that she wanted to achieve, as far as the education, as far as just developing into the person that she has evolved into.
I have been put in so many boxes and labels in my life during this educational process. So many, being black, being colored, being a Negro, all of that. Being a woman, being a black woman. I have gone through the system, but I'm still here. I'm still standing, tall like a tree. Just look at me. I'm still standing, arms so high, high in the sky that nobody can deny that I'm beautiful, bold, and brilliant, badass Nubian queen. I had gone to a spiritual retreat, and they had a table discussion going on, talking about the things that had scarred you and you had never talked about. And you know what it was? Longwood University. That was the first major scar that I got, that I really recognized because of the color of my skin. And I had written, I wrote another letter in between all that and asked for an honorary doctorate. I had to write and request it. And they had all this information, and they had nothing about it. What's happening with that? Miss Jubilee, just be patient. Something's happening. Okay, it's gonna be good. You're gonna love it. Okay. And then finally, he said, you will receive an honorary doctorate on May the 19th of 2024. And I said, oh, okay. And it was like a burden had been lifted from my heart and it's like, I feel like I had trauma in my cells. I had trauma in my cells from that scar. And I had never processed it. And that was 2024. Incident happened in 1964. Look how many years that was. But what I'm saying is, when things are meant to happen, it will be revealed. You will be shown what to do. Just trust the process and keep on moving. I am breaking an ancestral pattern. Maybe that's the way I need to describe it. Because it is. It's an ancestral pattern for, as a black woman, not only your voice, I'm fifth generation. That ancestral pattern is broken. I was turned down because I was black. But look where I stand today. Longwood University made up for it. Longwood University recognized that they needed not only correct it for me, but for all the other, my black brothers and sisters that had gone through injustices. And that allowed me to see that what you do, going back to purpose and service, is not all the time about you. When you get an idea and it keeps persisting in your mind, heart, and spirit, it becomes about everybody else. It becomes about everybody else.
Every woman has to come to the place in her life where she decides whether she's going to be her authentic self or not. And Yemaja
And I certainly had a crisis point of that in my own life. And so Yemaja plays that out loud and large for other people to see it and be able to say, this can be my story too.
She really influenced me to live in your skin, to be who you are, to, you know, no matter how different you might seem, she just kind of light and low where, you know what, dude, embrace yourself. Just love yourself for who you are and be who you are, no matter what anybody says. And just, she gave me that empowerment to just, hey, bro, walk in your skin. Love who, like she said, look in the mirror and love that person every day.
She gave me encouragement on a deeper level, you know, because she's there, she's with me, she calls me, she physically helps to help me maintain my purpose and to pursue it and not to forget.
Like, she entrusted Kendall and I with telling her family's story, a generational story. That's, I think I realized in that moment how much this meant to her, but also how much faith she was putting in these two college students that, looking back on, had not as good of an idea of what they were doing as, you know, they probably should have, doing something this important. But she had faith in us and she worked with us. So that was probably the moment that really hit me. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm doing something impactful.
My favorite sort of collection of memories is waking up to voicemails from her of ideas and inspirational moments and just any sort of thought she was having. She would call me at very early hours. I'd wake up, I'd see the voicemail, I'd listen to it, I'd jot down as many notes as I could. I'd listen to it a few times just to make sure I got everything out of it. And so many of those ideas were translated into the documentary, whether just through the soul and the heart and the passion of those ideas, or whether they were specific things of like, let's get this person, let's talk to this person, that led to just, you know, amazing content.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is everything and more.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is a trendsetter.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is uplifting and inspiring.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is a force to be reckoned with.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is passionate.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is a dynamo.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is charismatic.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is fantastic, my mother, and all of the above.
Let me go see what he's doing. I see.
Okay.
Girl, don't play no role. I don't have time, cause I've saved my soul. I'm up leveling. No wasting away in a space of blaming and shaming. No going down rabbit holes. Don't play no role. I'm alchemized, not traumatized. Girl, don't play no role. Girl, don't play no role.
Wait, what are you doing here? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had a narrator. Regarding my documentary. Oh, I'm the narrator now? Okay, well, let's get into it then. Okay, well, since I gotta run this full thing all my own, since we don't have a narrator, let's talk about this one K-pop girl group called New Jeans. So, they're a 5-member girl group from South Korea, and they were under the company Adore. Now, you may be wondering, why are you saying past tense, Hailey? Well, we gotta first get to know who these girls are before we get into their story. So let's get into it.
On July 22nd, 2022, New Jeans made their official debut with their song Attention, which has gained currently over 70 million views on YouTube. Now, as I said earlier, the group consists of 5 members, 2 which are considered foreigners, which are people that are not born in South Korea, which they are Danielle and Hani. And the other members are Minju, who's the oldest, Haein, who is the youngest, and Hayden is one of the other members as well. This all started on August 27, 2024, when Min Hee-jin was dismissed as the CEO of Adore following a protracted conflict with HYBE's top executives regarding New Jeans' control and activities. On October 2024, New Jeans issues an ultimatum against their company and without them knowing, or their staff knowing, on their public Instagram for the group, demanding to have Min Hee-jin back as the CEO and manager of Adore. And the girls gave both Adore and HYBE 14 days to meet the requirements of hiring Min Hee-jin back as their CEO and manager.
It was almost kind of a selfish move for them as a group. I understand you want to be out there, you want to be a performer, you want to reap the rewards of all the hard work that you've put in. However, to just go against such a big company that has so many other people that you are affecting with your decisions, I don't think it was the greatest choice.
I mean, I feel kind of sad about the whole boycott thing that's going on right now. I mean, I know why they're doing the whole boycott, but I mean, it's one of the first girl groups I've been introduced to, so I mean, I hope it was better, to be honest.
I feel that it was necessary because it brought a lot of things to light, like their mistreatment, and it really showed everybody just how the company was as a subsidiary of one of the biggest K-pop companies in the world. So I feel like it was necessary.
Another thing that has happened in October was that Hani went to court. Hani went to court because she had claimed that HYBE and Adore and her junior group, now that is revealed to be as Islet, had mistreated her, disrespected her, and saying all these nasty things about both the company and the other girl group, Islet. So, in retaliation, HYBE released footage of the interaction saying that Hani was never disrespected, the group never purposely ignored her, and never disrespected her in any way, shape, or form, which some people felt that Hani was just lying and she just got called out for it and were really upset, while others were defending her, saying, oh no, that's not Islet and that's not Hani, just trying to come to Hani's defense, saying this never happened and that's not the correct interaction. Following the court hearing from Hani, she goes viral on what I can assume is a Korean version of SNL, of these celebrities just making fun of her and mocking her crying in the middle of court, saying how she's only doing this for attention and that she's just a liar. In November 2024, after the 14-day period that the girls gave to Adore and HYBE about bringing Min Hee-jin back, and both companies failing to do so, New Jeans announced that they are terminating their exclusive contracts with both Adore and HYBE, while Adore responds to this issue saying that the contracts remain valid and what the girls are saying is not true. December 2024, Adore files a lawsuit against New Jeans, and the girls double down on what they said, along with demanding still to have Min Hee-jin back as both their CEO and manager, because they believed that she had best fit their group dynamic and had a vision for them that the current CEO and Hybe is not seeing it nor believes in what the girls wanted. On January 2025, Adore files an injunction against New Jeans, meaning that Adore is trying to prevent confusion and potential harm to third parties, including advertisers, that the girls are now causing to themselves and as well to the company. Some of these sponsors that they had regarding to Coca-Cola and high-end fashion brands such as Gucci and Chanel as well. On February 2025, New Jeans announces that they'll now be rebranded and named as NJZ, and Adore issues a response saying that the girls still never left the company and that they're still under Adore. And they made a deal with the girls saying that if they wanted to perform, which they had previously scheduled in Hong Kong, they would have to go by their name, New Jeans. Now, the girls agreed to go to Hong Kong and perform. However, they did not decide to go by any name whatsoever. They decided to just be represented as themselves and did not go by a specific name. They did not go as NJZ or New Jeans. And they just identified themselves as idols and welcomed their fandom when they got to Hong Kong and were performing. During their time of performing in Hong Kong, they also released a new song that was not released by both Adore or Hybe, and this was just a little teaser as to what the girls were expecting for their fans to get excited about what's coming up next for their future. However, the girls would later go back to court in March 2025 regarding their injunction again against Hybe and Adore, and that the girls would later go on to a temporary hiatus, which does not state how long they'll be on hiatus for, or also known as taking a break from creating music. And that is the current news as what's going on right now.
I guess I was initially expecting to work with kids, obviously, and be able to be around children and help them learn and kind of do things that help kids learn in the best way that they can. I think the student teaching and the physical practicum in the schools really helped, being able to work with kids and see what real teachers are actually doing. And I actually student taught in the area that I'm teaching now, so I think that really helped me get used to the area and how things work here. I had a pretty interesting student teaching experience with a wide array of children and ability levels and behavioral expectations and things like that. So I personally felt pretty well prepared, but I don't think anything really prepares you for how much work there is in addition to the teaching part.
My initial expectations were a ton of lesson planning, lots of expectations from the school and the school board outside of contract hours, and lots of bad student behavior.
At Longwood, my initial expectations set me up well for the path that I'm in now. Longwood really prepares its educators in special education to work in the inclusion setting, which is the field that I'm in now. And Longwood also provides several opportunities for practicum and internships to allow us to prepare for what we might experience in the field. And so a lot of those experiences and opportunities have shaped my ability to teach now and to give instruction to students more than the things that I've learned in the classroom.
I came into it in an unconventional way. So I decided halfway through my degree that I wanted to be a teacher. All I needed to do was I wanted to get a math major. So I have a math major, but I did not teach. I came here and subbed while I was getting my degree, and then the following year I taught for a full year, and they counted that as my student teaching, being a full-time teacher.
At Longwood, you get experience in elementary, middle, and high school, and so you get practicum experience in all three of those areas. And so going into Longwood, I was like, I'm definitely going to do elementary school, like I don't want to do middle or high school. But then I had my middle school placement, and then I had my high school placement, and I was like, whoa, I love these students.
I've had really wonderful mentors throughout my experience here, and my whole third grade team has just been wonderful and really accepting and including me in things and giving me support. And I don't feel pressured to know everything right now, which I think sometimes a lot of first-year teachers do.
There's another teacher in our school who is in charge of all new teachers, so they have a monthly meeting where they get together, and at our school this year, that person raised a bunch of money to make sure that they were outfitted with supplies and posters to go on the wall and pencils for the classroom and tissues and all that good stuff. So we really try to support our first year teachers.
I had to take a 3-hour mental health wellness class, and it was given by a life coach. And the whole premise of the 3 hours was how to not get to a place where you'd want to harm yourself as a teacher. And so it was very frightening to listen for 3 hours about how teaching will cause depression, teaching will cause anxiety, teaching will cause negative thoughts, teaching can cause you to want to harm yourself. And I thought, I don't want to do that job if this is the expectation of mental health during that job. My school itself also has a first year teacher program, and we meet once a month to talk about any challenges or successes we're having in the classroom.
The staff at this school is honestly phenomenal. The administration that I work with is really great. They have created a lot of support for me by providing me a mentor teacher. I meet with my mentor teacher at least once a week, sometimes every day if I need to. I also have support from my department head of English and the department head of special education. And then the district as a whole provides first year teachers professional development. So we meet 5 times a year for professional development opportunities, and they provide guidance and support in the roles that we have to do as teachers. Burnout is very real. I see it in every single teacher face when I walk in. And so I know that burnout is also most commonly after the teacher has reached their 3rd year of teaching. And so typically that's when most teachers leave the field. Is within their 3rd and 7th year.
Some people are in this job because they get their summers off, and they think they work from 7 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And so I don't think that has to do with how old you are. I think that's just your intrinsic values and what you feel like. I'm going to do a job, I'm going to go do that job well.
At the ends of marking periods or milestone areas where everything's due this day, I can definitely feel the burnout and the stress and all of the beautiful things that come with that. For me, it was the parent part of it that I did not have a lot of experience with before becoming a teacher. I didn't really interact with the parents at all. And sometimes I just feel like parents have very different expectations than I do about things, and it's sometimes there's a disconnect between what's actually going on and what they think is going on.
I really felt burnout, and it centered mostly around how negative the students were to each other. When the students have gotten tired, they have been unkind to each other, and that unkindness has really been evident in every area of the school. There have been an increase in fights, an increase in people not doing their work, an increase in negative behavior in the hallways and in the lunchroom. And it's really hard to deal with because we're not really allowed to talk to the children about mental health or being kind. I mean, we can touch on it, but parents get very upset if they think we are teaching their children socio-emotional learning, and they just want us to stick to math. And so when you don't have the freedom to say we can be unkind to each other, but you're having to deal with the unkindness, it can be very frustrating and hard.
The one biggest concern right now for me is that there are very little consequences for students, because we're worried about people being left out or people being left behind, or pigeonholing them into certain systems, and so because of that we do not have very many consequences that we're allowed to give, and that doesn't take long for students to figure that out. So I have that concern, and my other concern is, again, with every year it appears that we have something else that we have to be experts on, and so it's down to the point where you have to know each one of your kids as well as a parent knows their kid. You have to do a lot more than the 7 o'clock to 2 o'clock for the first, well, I mean, I've been doing it for 23 years and I still don't think I'm ever caught up. But I think those first couple of years, again, while you're trying to figure out how to handle all those things and how to handle 120 different personalities throughout the day, you know, it's a lot. It's mentally a lot. And then so you have people that don't put in the time outside of the classroom, so therefore they're not prepared.
Students deserve that there are people who show up for them in their lives. And so many of my students come from homes where there's not really someone showing up for them every day. And so if I can be that adult in their life to do that, then that's what I want to do.
Seeing the kids grow and like show that they've actually learned the things that I've taught them has been wonderful. And seeing them like feel more confident, and I've seen them, a lot of them kind of come out of their shells and build relationships with each other and myself, and I think I just overall feel a lot more comfortable and confident in everything since even the beginning of the year. I have this little like mantra or mindset rather that all behavior is a form of communication. So even the kids that are going to give you the most difficulty, they just are trying to communicate something to you. Whether they're doing it in a positive way or not, there's something deeper in there to get to, and so I try to let that, or not let that, discourage me from being positive about things and seeing the positive in every interaction I have.
When I see a student who's struggling with a concept get it, it makes me incredibly happy, especially with math, because they will use math in their life. So when they understand how to add a positive and negative number, I know they're going to use that for their checking account, for everyday things in life. And when they get it, it makes me super excited.
I also just feel like the high school students often just need some extra support and push and motivation to be able to succeed the things that they want to do after high school. And I think sometimes as a society we just kind of look at them that they're apathetic or they don't care, but they have a lot of care and they have a lot of desire and motivation and passion, and so I want to inspire that in them.
You know, one of the things we try to get our teachers to do is to become involved, and so, you know, like help coach something or help sponsor a class, or go out to the activities, go see things, become part of the school more than just a teacher.
Keep going. I know everyone's telling you not to, but you should, because there was a reason why you did it in the first place. And keep going, work through the tough things, because it's the tough things that are going to make you a better educator.
Don't listen to the naysayers. Teaching can be hard. Doing anything for 15 or 20 years is hard, and often the ones that are screaming the loudest have done this the longest. And I don't necessarily know whether teaching has changed or just society in general has changed. And so be willing to get into the classroom and form your own opinion and see whether you enjoy that kind of atmosphere or not.
Like playing a golf game. You can hit 13 bad shots in a row, but you hit that one good shot and it lands on the green and it rolls back and has backspin on it, and you're like, yes, I'm gonna keep on playing this game. And that's what you gotta focus on. So it is a very hard job. It is getting tougher, but we need you. We need young people to come in and take over and have new ideas and figure out how to get our kids to learn. So be a teacher.
Welcome everyone, and I hope everyone's having a blessed day. For those who may not know who I am, my name is Xavier Davis, and this may be something that you may not be used to. We're going to be diving in my educational challenges and achievements throughout my life while being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. So welcome to the eyes of the beholder. For those who may not know what that means, it's easy showing you rather than telling you. It goes a little like this. So like I said, it's easy showing you rather than explaining. And for somebody like me with ADHD who struggles with this multiple times throughout life, I have multiple things going on in my head, and it's kind of hard to focus on that one thing, especially when you got so many distractions ahead of you. That's how it was for me. But enough for me talking. Let's start from the beginning. I said, let's start from the beginning. Oh, my bad, that's me. So yeah, let's start from the beginning, where it all started. Day one. Growing up, I knew I was a lot different from the other kids. Not in a bad way, but I just stood out differently. I remembered I was into a lot of different things than other kids were, and just kind of how I interacted with others was a lot different too. I was very, very hyper all the time. Not saying that I didn't know boundaries, because I did know boundaries, but I think there was just times where I was overly excited, or I was just wanting to be too outgoing. With that ADHD, it's very different from what, somebody who may not be used to, especially in a parent setting. ADHD runs in families. It's common. Anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of parents with ADHD will have a child with the disorder. That gene is just easily passed. And then, like I said, it's nothing you can really do about it. With that, genetics are very easily passed down. If a parent has had ADHD and not known about it, there's a good possibility the child is passed on with that genetic gene, if that makes sense. I want to make sure people understand that just because, they may have more energy than others doesn't mean they can be different, or they doesn't make them less cognizant. It just means that, they're just a little different and they just need a little bit more time. And there's nothing wrong with having a little bit more time. My mom always told me that you always take your time, especially when it came to tests and stuff. Always make sure you have time for yourself and that you feel comfortable at your own pace and don't feel rushed. Her being a social worker, I feel like that improved and helped me see things a lot differently when I was growing up.
Well, so when you were little, like around the age of 2, like around 1 or 2, I don't remember exactly, there was some delayed speech. And again, the field I worked in at that time, I was working for the state of Maryland, and my supervisor had a son the same age as you. And we were just talking, like both of our sons' speeches were delayed. And it was funny because as we were talking, we were like, you know what, we talk to families about this all the time. Like instead of, because a lot of times, family members and friends, they'll say things like, oh, he'll grow into it, or, don't worry about it. He's just, he's just a boy. Like people would really say that. And sometimes boys are slow speaking. But, working in the field that we worked in, we were both like, wait a minute, we know better than this. And there's resources available. So there's a program in many states called Early Intervention Services. And so I had you assessed. Again, speaking with my supervisor, we both were like, we just need to call early intervention. And we both had our children assessed. And when you were first assessed for speech and language, they were saying that you didn't meet the criteria, meaning you didn't meet the criteria for services. But in my heart of heart, I felt like, no, we need some intervention. We need some help. I didn't want you to be behind. So I submitted an appeal, and I had to speak to the appeal board with my concerns. And again, because of my background and the work I did, I was able to word it in a way to show what your needs were. And, they then approved the services. And so you were approved for speech. And then when you were approved for speech services, you get a plan written, and it's a service plan written for those services, and you age out at 3 years old. So when you were 3 years old, you aged out of that and you went into the DC school, because in DC you were able to go to school at 3 years old. And when you aged out, luckily, DC has those early pre-K services. So you were in DC school district and you were able to get an IEP for your speech services. So even though you didn't get them through early intervention, you got it through the school district of DC. So you had an IEP written for your speech services. And while they were following you for speech, that's, that it's a team of special education teachers who follow students when they have IEPs. So we would have IEP meetings, and then we would discuss other concerns. And so you actually tested out a speech. You got to the point where you met all your goals for speech. So you no longer needed speech therapy, but there were other concerns that when you were in high school and middle school, you didn't really like getting pulled out of class. And, I would try to explain to you, the importance of that, and, to speak to your teachers about it, to let you know that that accommodation was available to you and why it was available to you, and, to make sure that your teachers were abiding by it. And so that's how I taught you to advocate for yourself. But as far as me advocating for you, in the background, I would reach out to teachers, and we were pretty lucky as far as when you were in the DC school district, because I was always at the school and I was always involved. They, they were wonderful as far as making sure you had what you needed and you had the accommodations you needed. But as we moved to different states, it was a little bit more difficult sometimes. And so I would just make sure that I stayed in constant communication with the counselors at your school, and make sure they knew who I was. And I stayed up on any emails from your school. I monitored your grades. And, if I saw that there was a situation that I needed to step in, like I would request either a meeting with your school counselors or, principals, whoever, and make sure that those things were handled or taken care of. But like I said, a big part of it too was making sure you spoke up for yourself and just telling you things like, talk to your teacher about getting extra help or about getting, tutoring or, whatever it is.
Trying to finish this email. Oh, well, I guess it's my turn then. So we're going to be moving on to chapter 2. And this is kind of talk about my high school experience, but also the transitioning from high school to college. So let's not take any more time. High school for me, it was very interesting. I say interesting because especially when COVID hit, it really deteriorated some things for me. I was kind of on a path where I just wanted to play sports. Really didn't have that education career mindset. And then I really had to ask myself what I really wanted to do after high school. I do believe that there were some challenges that I faced, especially when it came to certain things like learning math. Like I was not strong at that. But I was a very strong history learner as well. Again, I had some struggles in high school especially, but I can't say I didn't have those accommodations. Because without those accommodations, I don't know where I would be. They really helped me, even though I didn't like.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're a little less accessible than some other places. I feel like it could have been easier to find. My freshman, sophomore year, I knew about it. I heard about it from friends and stuff like that. But it wasn't super easy to get access to. Getting extensions on time for tests and stuff like that was definitely a process that you had to go through. So I feel like it could have been more talked about in New Lantern Days and stuff like that, so that it was known that I had a resource to look out for, instead of having to go search for it myself. But it was definitely they helped for sure.
Testing done at CAPS for ADD and ADHD or something like that, and they might share the reports that they get from those meetings with CAPS or from the doctors recommending that led them to seeking out support. And then there are some other students who maybe only, they've been talking about their doctor or their prescribed medication. So that's all part of the documentation process. Another important piece of it, and I think this is probably the most important, is what we refer to as the interactive process. So when a student comes in for their initial intake, our staff members will ask them a lot of questions, the point of which are to determine how that student's experience is being affected academically. So testing and reports can only tell you so much, it says this person has ADHD, but what does that look like? Because that could be different for you or different for me or different for anybody. So the point is,
the biggest thing for me was always just
how much work there is when you get here. Like 6 classes, 7 classes when you're getting here, all the work like on top of each other. Our Canvas pages are full. Like all that stuff stacking on top was where I started to get like flustered and kind of missing stuff and stuff like that. So I guess like stuff like that where my group members would be like, hey, we have this coming up, we have this tomorrow, we have this due on Wednesday, where I'd be like, oh, I haven't even thought that far ahead about stuff yet. So that was definitely a struggle, just like trying to get everything organized in my head. And I guess just like I'm definitely a little bit of not a procrastinator, but I wait a little bit longer than a lot of other people to do stuff. So I guess just catching up on people's schedules and getting up to that standard rather than my own was definitely a struggle.
This is back to me. It's finally my turn. So to start off chapter 3, I kind of wanted to give a statistic. I came to find out that only 5% of students in college, undergrad, with ADHD graduate. Only 5%. That is a very small number, especially depending on the size of your school. Now, granted, I'm gonna be a part of that 5% that graduates, but the work that I had to do to get there wasn't easy, and the mental strain and everything wasn't pretty. But at the end of the day, I had to realize that college is hard and life is harder, and it really determines on how you present yourself and what you put out there on what gets reciprocated back. For me, I understand that for some people with ADHD, they had to medicate a lot. I challenged myself a lot this year, really seeing how much I can do being less medicated, really seeing how much I can focus, how much I can get done, especially prioritizing my time and everything else that I had going on. Now, again, it wasn't easy, and there were a lot of hard moments, but I really had to find those ways to motivate myself, to get up out of bed, to go to class, to go to work, to continue what they're doing the next day over and over again, you know? It's those things I really ask myself, you know, why am I here? But that's why I like to think of me being different, but in the words, I don't like to use the words different. I like to say I'm neurodiverse. I like to think differently from others, but people don't kind of see what I see. I feel like when you are at an understanding of what you really have going on with you, some things open up a little differently. And that's not a bad thing, but you just see things a lot differently, especially when you don't really know what's going on with you. My thing is for people, I want them to feel comfortable with who they are. Yes, you're different, and it's okay to be different, but don't mean that you have to give up on everything you do. Now, yes, some things might be harder. You're gonna have to work twice as hard. I know I had to, but for that, you start to realize how much you can do, that there are no limitations for yourself. You can go beyond expectations.
We wasn't black and we wasn't white. We were what Mama said, that God just left us in the oven just long enough to brown us because we were the only ones who were right. She said the blacks, he left them in there too long, and the whites, that he didn't leave them in there long enough. And he left the Indians in there where they're brown. And that's what we do to biscuits now. We brown them. I graduated in 1960, but I went from 1st grade through 12th grade at High Plains School. And it was we called it a private school because there wasn't nobody in there but Indians.
I was integrated into the white school in 1962. Yeah, 1962.
I was in the 1st grade. This was the last year of its operation. And in the 1st grade, we had 1st and 2nd grade in the same classroom. It was a combination classroom. The 1st grade sat to one side of the classroom, the 2nd grade to the other side. We had the same teacher, so she would be working with one group while the other group was doing independent work. And then she would switch off with us.
You know, and in the classroom, we had 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade in the same room. You know, she'd teach 1st a while, 2nd, 3rd, and then go to 4th. And it was the same way with the rest of them. We had 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, and then 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th grade.
Now, we had our own High Plains school because Person County, North Carolina, nor Halifax County, Virginia, provided a school for our American Indian students. Our school began as a part of our church years ago, and the school was held at the church.
The first one was one room off of what was then the Indian Church Mayo Chapel.
And then later, when our own school was built, and the Person County schools had some participation, most of the lumber and the land for the school and all that came from our community.
Everybody was excited to be in school, and of course recess was the most important thing for me. But yeah, it started out like a 4-room building, just a square building. And it had like a entranceway, like a hallway you walked into, and then there was a room on the left, there was a room on the right, and then back behind that was another room on the right and the left. And that was the original part of High Plains.
In the early 1920s, the Indian school was still one room, which held students of all different ages taught by one teacher. School at that time was held October through March, which coincides with the agricultural calendar, right? Kids were needed to go home to help with the farm. By 1924, that school had 4 rooms, and it was then called High Plains Indian School.
And then later they added on the other 2 rooms on the north side, which was one for the high school kids and one for also it had like a class for civics and all the boys was in that class. The other class that was at the far north of that building was set up for home economics, and that was for the ladies that took up cooking and sewing, all that good stuff.
And we sewed, and boys did too if they wanted to.
Virginia never did support having a school on the Virginia side, but they did furnish some of the funds for the High Plains School on the North Carolina side. And the funds may take care of helping pay the teachers, or when it was time that they needed to do some changes to the school, they may have supplied some money for supplies.
If you had extra wood, you took it to school, you know. You did whatever you could do. Now the county furnished our books.
Both counties contributed some part to the school, such as teachers' pay, furnishings like benches, coal for the stove.
But we had paper. Our parents couldn't afford to buy writing paper. If we needed something at home to write on, we always wrote on a brown paper bag. You know, we always managed to keep a pencil.
And Person County provided minimal help along the way.
Most of the time, the school board consisted of family members, whether it be a father, a mother, or whatever, from each family.
There was one bus that picked up all the children who didn't walk from Virginia and North Carolina.
And at the very beginning, back when my dad was in elementary school, my granddad would go through and pick up some of the students and bring them to school. So it was a combined effort for our parents of the students as they went to High Plains to provide that.
I remember walking to school one day, and that's when I was very small. I was in the first grade at that time. That's the only time I remember walking to school, and that's, of course, we missed the bus. Had an older cousin. He was in the high school. He said, well, there ain't nothing to do but walk to school. Didn't have that far to walk. Didn't have about a mile, so that wasn't too bad.
Reginald, we called him, and he was an excellent student in school. So when we were taking our final exam for the 12th grade, he said, now if you listen to me, I'll tell you what the answer is. If I clear my throat twice, it's a B. If I clear my throat 3 times, it's number C. If I don't do it at all, you know it's number A. So we all passed that exam that year. Every one of us. But we laughed and told him we didn't cheat. He was just clearing his throat.
In this area, in the southeast, and in Person County and Halifax County, were very different than they are now. It was the norm for parents of all school children to furnish some part of the school, whether it was building material and labor or the land.
I don't remember having an Indian teacher, but Ruby's mom and them had them, when they were growing up. But now we had all white teachers. They were white, but they were good to us. And our parents was good to them.
Furnished the wood and everything for the parents did, and they supported the teachers and whatever they needed.
Well, in the wintertime, we had a wood stove. Every once in a while, they'd bring a load of coal in, for it, but mostly the parents brought wood.
School was very important. Even though my mom and dad were farmers, and we would come home from school and have to go to work in the fields, depending on whatever phase we were in with the tobacco. When we got home, they always made sure we got our homework done, that if it was anything they needed to study, with us for on our flashcards or different things, they were always supportive.
My mama didn't go to school that much, so she didn't know how to help us with the homework.
It was always fun to be with our friends because this was our cousins, our family, our neighbors. We would all be at the school together, and we went to church together. We visited each other's homes, so we were always best buds playing together at High Plains.
If you were doing something and you needed help, you'd ask your neighbor. And they always helped. You didn't have no problem. Well, what are you going to pay me? That wasn't nothing. It wasn't anything like that.
All of us were so connected and close, and the families was related to each other, that we were just bonded with the whole group of kids at High Plains. So it's just like one big family.
We didn't have powwows, but we had gatherings. Our mothers and fathers would cook pies and cakes and all of this, and the men would fit wash tubs full of lemonade or Kool-Aid, and we'd all gather at the school.
My mom happened to be the PTA president the year that the school was closed. So she had gone to meetings of the Board of Education and expressed a desire of not wanting to close the High Plains School. But we did have some of our American Indian parents that felt like we would get a better opportunity if we went to the white schools. My mom and dad never shared that thought.
They closed it because we didn't have the facilities to cook, and they needed a lunchroom, and that's why they closed it down.
North Carolina had passed a law that the students had to be provided a hot lunch at school. And High Plains did not have a cafeteria.
In 1954 came the case of Brown versus the Board of Education, in which the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to have racial segregation in public schools. And that overturned the 1896 separate but equal doctrine.
So instead of using the funds to build on a cafeteria at High Plains, the county decided to close the school.
In 1962, the Board of Education decided to withdraw the high school students from High Plains Indian School and send them to the Person County School, Bethel Hill High School. The plan then extended to all the students of High Plains Indian School, and they were sent to Allensville Elementary.
It was a big culture shock to me on going to the Allensville school. All of my contact had been with the High Plains families, and we went to church together, we played together, we went to school together, so all of our contact had been with our American Indian students, those of us here in the community. It was different going to an all-white school.
When we graduated from high school, then everybody dispersed out, whether some was fortunate enough to go to college, or some of them didn't want to go to college and just went straight on to manufacturing job.
We didn't have the same identity once we started moving outside of the community.
90% of our people that graduated, they left and went other places. You know, Richmond, Pennsylvania.
And Georgia, and just places off like that, and then they never moved back. Other than when you have like, they'd come back to visit when you have homecoming or something like that. But oftentimes I would think, I said, just think, if our people were given the opportunity to grow here, where they went to school, where they grew up, then just think about how huge, how big a tribe we would have here today, you know?
Well, you know, when we were born, they didn't call us an Indian or black. We were mulattoes. And I didn't know anything about that until after I got married. And I went looking for some things that I needed, and I found out that I had to change my birth certificate. I had to change it and put Indian on it. But then when my baby sister and the sister below me were born, theirs had Indian on it. And they had mom and daddy as Indians. But on mine, it was mulatto. Now what that was, I don't know. It either said you want black and you want white.
A later census term for many southeastern Indians was mulatto, but it could mean different things. It could mean white and black, it could mean white and Indian, or it could mean Indian, but you weren't white.
People give you the cold shoulder. They want to have nothing to do with talking to you, shunned you. Some of the stores you go in, they looked at you differently. For example, I know you've seen Westerns on TV, right? And you've seen people be in the general store, be shopping, doing whatever. Then you see this Indian person come in. Then everybody stops talking, starts looking and whispering and all. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
I think the American Indian community sometimes was looked over. It wasn't, when you would think about the race of people, you thought of black or white. And the Indian didn't much so play into the identity of different things. And even though we had been settled here in this area for a long time, my dad had stories that he could tell of places, even as close as Virgilina is, that he wasn't welcome to be served at, or, you know, to go into the stores and different things. And when you went to the courthouse in Roxborough, we'd have to take our tobacco to Roxborough or South Boston to sell. And so at the courthouse, they had public bathrooms. They had one for the whites and one for the blacks. And the Indians didn't even have a bathroom labeled for them. So it was like we were the looked over race in a lot of situations.
If we went to a bathroom in public, you had to go to the black. You know, if you wanted to drink water, you had to drink out of the black. You couldn't drink out of the white. And that's one reason why I never wanted to live in town.
So I remember on the first day of school, when we went outside for our morning recess. We kind of stayed in our own little corners. Our American Indian students were kind of palling up, standing around together, and the white students were kind of standing across the way from us. And finally this one little boy said, "Well, if y'all are really Indian, prove it." So my sister, who's normally very shy, didn't have much to say, kind of put us together in a huddle and said, "Now whatever I do, you all do." She got out there and was doing the little stereotypical rain dance, you know, going around in a circle with the woo woo woo, and we were following her, the stereotypical stuff. When we were going around in a circle, probably our second time around, it came a huge clap of thunder and started pouring down rain. So it astonished us because we in no ways thought that, you know, we could do a real rain dance. So I thought this was miraculous. So I couldn't wait to get home to tell my mom that we had made it rain, and she was not enthused at all. She said we should feel proud to be who we are, and we don't have to prove that to anybody else, that we should be proud of our identity, and it doesn't matter the situation on who the people were that were in our surroundings. We should always have that pride. That has really stood with me on wherever my leadership positions have been, or different places I've been in positions with people from other cultures, that I should always be proud of who I am as an American Indian.
Child, my sister and mom dragged me into it, and at first I kind of hated it, but I grew to love it, and I grew to love the competition and the spirit that the competitors have. It's an insane asylum. You just get a bunch of kids who are either wicked smart or wicked funny or wicked sharp, and you just throw them in a room, and there's a bunch of different topics, different categories. Me personally, I was an interp kid, best realm of speech, competitive acting. So you're going up, pretending, making judges laugh, making judges cry. And then there's the informative stuff where a bunch of nerds go up and either research for 30 minutes, which is insane, or 4 minutes, which is even more insane. And it's just a bunch of smart kids doing smart things.
I was inspired to kind of start competing and join a speech team because, I mean, my mom was the coach, so when your mom tells you to do something, you kind of can't say no, but also just, my mom and I are very similar, both physically, like we look like the same person, but very emotionally and spiritually as well. Like we have so much in common, and what drives us is so similar, and so far my life path has kind of lined up with hers perfectly. And so she did speech in high school, and I at that point had already fallen in love with theater, and so it felt very natural to just kind of join and do this thing with my mom. But I also was kind of, I was kind of a lost kid. I'm a lost adult, but it feels a lot more of a big deal to, not have a lot of friends or have a big community when you're 13 and you don't really have the tools to build that. And joining the speech team gave me those tools to kind of have community and friends and relationships that I just didn't have.
Coaching you and coaching your little brother was more challenging than I could have ever possibly imagined. But with any challenge come the best rewards, right? And so flash forward to each of your senior years, all of that emotion, all of that worry, all of that fear, the flip side of that coin was I got to see you guys get the win, right? And so it, just like childbirth itself, erases all the pain and you're willing to do it again. But looking back, I can't believe that I was able to maintain the level of connection and friendship parenting with you guys through that. Because it was very, very hard. It was the challenge of my parenting life with you guys. Because no one gives you a textbook of when to turn off mom and when to turn on coach.
Well, I'll tell you that coaching my own kids was not easy. The personalities did not mesh very well, given just how similar yet how different we were. Specifically, Joey and I. There were certain times where I was able to reach him, but then there were other times where it just my intensity did not match his intensity. So by the time he got to high school, I think he was just done. And then he was gravitating towards the speech, which in the long run I think is going to be 1,000 times more beneficial for him moving forward, versus if he had done 4 years of high school wrestling or any other sport for that matter. I think his decision was the best decision for him. And as a coach, I always want my athletes to be able to think about those type of things. Think about, is this really for me? Am I really enjoying it? Because if you're not enjoying something, why bother doing it? So, and he wasn't having any fun doing it. So that was the coach in me. Now the dad in me, that was tough. That was a tough pill to swallow, given that, we as parents vicariously live through our kids. That's just, you're never going to get rid of that. And I'll honestly think that if we don't want what's best for our kids, or we don't want the kids to have the same accolades and positive aspects from that, then I guess we're not really doing a good job as a parent.
Nobody believes me when I say this, but, and you can attest, we didn't get special treatment. We were held to the exact same standards as everybody else in that room. And at times, for me at least, I was held to a higher standard. People wanted, there were a couple of people that would put on this idea of, oh, you're the coach's kid, you get this because you're the coach's kid, you get that because you're the coach's kid. It's like, I didn't get anything without proving myself. I didn't get anything without earning it. I had to work twice as hard to be captain my senior year because my mom didn't want anybody to question why it was me. I walked into that room, 11:01, for speech practice, and I wasn't my mom's kid. I was a member of the speech team. And that wasn't my mom, that was my coach. And so it's a little hard to have that separation and that cut and that divide in your relationship. But I do think at the end of the day, it brought us closer. I think my mom has and always will be my best friend. But it wasn't always easy. I had a lot to prove. Not necessarily to her, because she thought I was great, because she's my mom. But there's definitely a level of having to prove myself to a lot of people that I wasn't just a coach's kid. I was that good.
That's hard. It's hard to give you guys an equitable experience to everyone else. And it's hard to manage your own emotions. It's hard to manage your own emotions daily as your coach, giving feedback in a fair way, giving constructive criticism in a fair way. And it's really hard when you guys don't get what you want. That is the most emotionally challenging thing of the entire experience, is when other students don't do well, it's very easy to separate. Oh, you had a bad day, it's fine. But when it's your own, you physically feel it, and that was tough. But on the other side of that, you also physically feel the joy of your wins. Mm-hmm. And so the other, like I said, the other side of that is hearing your name called.
Because it would be your name too.
It doesn't matter in the moment. It didn't matter in the moment. It wasn't anything about me. And seeing you guys get what you deserved, because you had so many more challenges than just the average kid. You had the expectation, and I know growing up with your grandfather, what it was like to not be a great soccer player, and everyone expected you to be the best soccer player on the field because of Jose Sanchez was your father. And you know, I could hold my own, but certainly not the way that you and your brother turned out in speech, where you were the best in the room. And you shouldn't have had more to prove, but you had more to prove because you were my kid. And so for you to go into these competitions and be judged by someone who is not me, from not the region, who doesn't know who you are, and for you to take those championships home, that was the most validating thing for me as your mother coach, to see you guys get that validation, because that's all I ever wanted for you guys to know was in your heart. You didn't get the success you got because you were mine. You got that success because you worked really hard and you listened to me as your coach, not your mom. And that was a beautiful thing to be a part of.
She knew what I could do. She knew that I was capable and talented. So a lot of times she, with her motherly trust, would give more time to the other people on the team that needed it. And then I'd end up having Rowan over in the middle of the night, and then I'd make her coach us then. But I also think it helped, because speech and debate is such an emotional, difficult thing, and having your mom there to support you definitely helps out, because there's no one I know who knows more than what she does. So being able to trust her as a coach and as a mom really helped us get through some of the tougher competitions and stressful moments.
Watching all of you guys compete, I said it a million times, when you guys would come home from those speech competitions, you could tell you guys were exhausted, you were sweaty, you probably sweated through your undershirts, you know, just I'm a convert to this speech idea. Kids have to find their passion. They have to find something they're passionate about. And watching you guys find your passion, and I can't complain about that.
I mean, you come from a household entirely of coaches. Your husband coaches, your two adoptive sons coach, your kids coach.
My mother coached, my father coached.
So do you think that there is
a gene? Yes. Yeah, I think there's a teacher gene. You know, you can argue whether it's nature or nurture, but it's there. It's there. It's fostered in the way that you bring your family up. It's a personality trait. It's a learned trait, and there's probably a lot of biological, just the brain chemistry it takes to be able to do this. It's got to be something physical and scientific as well.
I mean, the coaching's teaching, and let's even those that preach, you know, that idea of being the person that imparts knowledge. I think there definitely is a gene, because not everybody can get up in front of a group, whether it's students, children, young adults. It's not easy. And so it does take a certain type of person to be able to do that. And frankly, there is that teaching gene. Also, your mom is always right. So
speech and debate, I think it's cliche to say speech and debate changed my life and made me who I am. But truly, like, changes you. It makes you more compassionate. It gives you a deeper sense of empathy. You're taking on other people's stories through these interp events, or if you're in limited prep, you are constantly taking in more and more knowledge. If you're in platform, you're really expressing your own ideas and your own thoughts and your own feelings in a time when, at an age when you don't really have a lot of people looking to you for your opinion. And so it always felt natural and felt obvious that I would go back to it in some capacity, and I've been judging for years. And just knowing how good it was for me as a young person, and given the opportunity to kind of give that to somebody else and give it to the next generation and allow a kid to feel seen and heard and understood. And the way that I was as a speech competitor just felt like the natural progression of where I was going and what I needed in my life.
One of the aspects of coaching that has really been very positive for our family is we've been able to kind of expand our family beyond just, like the biological kids. We've got several students and kids over the years that gravitate towards us, that call us mom and dad. They're just as part of our family as the next. And there's been a lot of satisfaction in that as well, getting to know young kids who are trying to make their way, and for them to find something that they're passionate about really makes for a better experience as a coach, primary, secondary, as a parent as well.
It makes me proud because everyone in my family is doing what they love without any hesitation, without any care. They're just doing what they love.
Why is it a secret? The secret is because it's not important who's underneath those the hooded sweatshirts. What is important is what they're walking about.
I think Kai contributes to Longwood a real sense of spirit, pride, and appreciation for all the things that make Longwood a special place.
But not having that homecoming weekend that people come to and cheer, yay, rah, rah, we had to create our own traditions. And I think for whatever reasons, we've been able to embrace those traditions, and we've changed our traditions to adapt. And to a degree, it is a little weird on purpose to kind of promote that. What the heck is that? And what does this mean? And not that every student will ever embrace what exactly it means, and not that every student will graduate understanding what the spirit of Kai is, but it's there if they want to be a part of it.
I think one of the things that makes Kai what it is, and I can only speak for Kai having been a part of this organization, is the fact that it is not about the members that compose its working staff.
It was a secret society that was devoted to benevolent purposes. I think everybody saw it that way. I think it had more of a mysterious aura then than it does now. I think Kai has worked to change that for the better. I think Kai is a better organization today than it was then.
If you go back to 1972, that is when the organization changed its purpose. The rotunda symbol was not the university symbol at the time, but Kai adopted the rotunda symbol, adopted the colors blue and white versus a skull and crossbones, adopted the idea of recognition. I will say that there was an in-between stage when the skull and crossbones organization started to recognize people with what they called the Kai Phantom. And that was probably the 60s and 70s. And that was when the beginning of an organization or group of people was starting to recognize that spirit and recognize people for the work that they were doing. The organization became more about the spirit. And it didn't become an organization, it became a spirit.
Getting dressed in the robes that we wore then, and there was more of a secret environment, I think, than there is. Well, it was a different kind of secret environment. But yes, remembering the walks and the little chants that we used to sing as we walked along.
I think Kai's burning has a very different, I think people have a very different understanding of what burning is and what it truly is. If there's a person that reveals himself at burning that means something to you, that's a great aspect of what Kai is about. It's hopefully recognizing the people who are recognized with the Kai Commendation are what burning is all about.
Service is one of the biggest parts of Kai. So it's definitely an eye-opener when it comes to service and how you serve the Longwood students, but also the general Farmville community. Just being in the organization leadership is another big thing. So some people in Kai are more known across campus than others. You find that out when you burn, but we're all leaders in our own way, and we try to highlight that in different ways when we're together and promote it across campus.
No, I think Kai is very hard to explain. I think to say that it's a spirit is something that people are trying to like, what do you mean, like a ghost or like rah-rah, like athletic spirit? I always say that it is truly just that feeling you feel when you walk on our campus. And to a degree, I think that's what the spirit of Kai is making sure that everyone belongs, everyone feels like they belong. Since 1972 and now, I think the idea of it being a spirit is much more important than it was. That those who are represented to participate in walks and those types of things are not necessarily Kai, they're representatives of that spirit.
Yeah, so, Kai is always looking for ways to express themselves to the campus community. So, all of the things that Kai does is intended to promote the spirit of Longwood.
5, commence freshman Peyton Richardson.
I think as a student, I think I was always into the secrecy of it. I think I was always into the, what the heck is that about? And honestly, who was in it and how they got in and those types of things. I think now, I think having one, grown up, but two, watched the organization from many different avenues. It really is part of Longwood. It is part of that thing that makes us truly unique. I think you don't see secret organizations like Kai anywhere else. You see secret organizations that have different meanings, but to have an organization or to have a group of people whose true role is to recognize the contributions of other people, that's pretty rare.
I was at Burning last year, and really just kind of watched a student, a young lady, bawl in tears of joy when her name was announced as someone being recognized. So I feel like I'm more attentive to that, and that just brings me joy.
I think if all the things that I have learned about Kai from 1986 until now, is that the motto of service to the whole without seeking honor for thyself has become my true understanding of leadership, my true understanding of what good people do. It's not about a title. It's not about recognition. It's not about day-to-day activities. It's about taking the time out to realize how other people impact not only me, but impact the world.
We assemble to promote and support our college community. Kai wishes to maintain a spirit of cooperation among everyone here at Longwood.
I am having trouble in school. I have been studying for my 4 praxis exams, and I am really struggling. I am scared that I will never pass them and be able to student teach and graduate.
I hate to admit it, but I feel like once I leave college, no one will care that I exist. I don't know if that is just my self-doubt or if I made friends with all of the wrong people. Whichever it is, there are no do-overs in life, so I guess I'll just have to wait and see what happens.
As a graduate student approaching final exams, my stress levels have never been higher. I feel like all I do is wake up, study, go to bed. My sleep quality and quantity has been terrible for the past month, and I am so mentally exhausted.
I still don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm worried all of my friends will stop talking to me once we aren't all in the same place, and I have to move back home, which isn't the best thought. Everyone keeps telling me that everything will be okay and that not much is changing. But in fact, everything is changing. I'm excited for the next chapter in my life, but I'm not sure I'm ready to close the one I'm in.
Moments. It's all the little things that really make a difference in people's day-to-day life. So going out of your way to compliment somebody or make somebody smile, I think that's the most kind of meaningful word. It can really help brighten somebody's day, help their perspective on, just how we talk to people and how we communicate and really just how we feel as human beings. If you think about it kind of in terms of stressors, so in health psychology, we talk about how minor hassles can really be as impactful as bigger stressful life events. And so I think it's the same way. I've heard the concept of, instead of a hassle, like a glimmer. So small glimmers or small moments in our day that are impactful in a positive manner can really, influence our overall well-being, our quality of life, our mental health symptoms. In the same way that, those negative small stressors add up, I think these positive kind of glimmers of goodness and hope and positivity throughout our day can really add up and help kind of brighten our overall perspective. I think that it is important to take a step back in your day and kind of look at it from an outsider perspective, to make a tally of all the good things that have happened to you during the day instead of focusing on all the bad things that have happened, because it's going to better your perception of your day and it's going to help your mental health because you're focusing on the more positive aspects of your day instead of thinking about everything that went wrong. Our brain is hardwired to want to feel good, especially in adolescence and younger adulthood. The brain is really susceptible to dopamine and kind of that rush of doing something and getting kind of that immediate gratification. And so when you think about, changing some of these activities to more altruistic or more things that are going to help us and other people feel better, the reward system in the brain can reinforce that. If we give somebody a compliment, it makes us smile, it makes them smile, we're going to be more likely to do it again and again and again. And when we get these small rewards, our brain knows that feels good, and we're going to want to kind of do that again.
I don't know who it was, but I was having a bad day. Just, everybody has bad days. And this girl complimented my outfit and told me that I looked really pretty that day. And I don't know, that's the thing that I feel like people don't always do, because maybe social anxiety is something, but I don't know, just hearing little compliments and you look really pretty and feeling like they genuinely meant that. I don't know, that's something that has stuck with me for sure.
Theories that look at positive emotions, like the broaden and build theory, really show how everyday joys and kind of simple pleasures can be reinforced. We can broaden our kind of emotional trajectories, maybe by experiencing new things, complimenting somebody, trying out. I think that both positive theory and the attachment theory are probably going to help explain those the most, just because the positive theory is pretty much that any positive attitude or interaction that you have is going to better your mental health. So just kind of having that outlook of your own and being more positive is going to help the people around you have a more positive mental health. And then the attachment theory as well is basically just kind of based on the fact that having a positive relationship with someone that's important to you is going to teach you to have a better positive relationship towards someone else. These small things are really important because a lot of times in life, we don't always have those big major events, those big wins. And so looking every day at one small thing that maybe we accomplished, something that made us smile, something we're grateful for that day, can really help build resilience, because it adds up these kind of small wins and looks at how we can really, stop and think about our everyday life. What we're doing on the small term can really impact kind of what we experience in the long term.
Things you say, things people do, your daily interactions really do affect people's mental health, whether you realize it or not, because you don't know what people are going through, kind of thing. And even just flashing a smile, being nice to people, that can go a long way in helping people.
I would say to consider how you feel when you're interacting with others and reflect that on how you would treat other people. So really focus on, if you want to have someone treating you positively, then go throughout your day treating others positively as well.
If they need anything, I'm there to talk. And if it's a stranger, then hey, you want to go get coffee, you want to go hang out and do this instead, and make a friend, and just let people know that someone is there for them and people care about them.
Born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. So a Florida native that's transplanted to Virginia. Feel like I had a great upbringing, two parents that loved me a bunch and wanted the best for me. That's kind of one of the reasons why why I coach. I love basketball growing up, and it definitely became an outlet for me after my father's death. My father passed away when I was 14, and if it wasn't for basketball, I think, I don't know, I'm not really sure what direction I would have gone, but there was a big hole in my heart, and basketball was a way to fill that void. And the coaching bug kind of bit my senior year of college. Right before the season, I had an injury that at the time didn't think it was serious, but it forced me to miss half of my senior season. And so sitting on the bench for games and not being able to participate in practice, it allowed me to see the game from a different prism. So now it's my why.
McIntyre stutters, takes, and hits.
I learned a lot under Coach Erica, but one thing that specifically speaks with me and just will always stick with me, it's in our core values now, but just doing the right stuff. And the biggest thing is just humility out of it. If I had to pick one thing, always being humble and just staying humble, never getting too high, never getting too low. I use it in my personal life, and then now, obviously, as a coach, I practice those same values, and I'm able to share that with the ladies that we coach here at Longwood now.
My first assistant job was at Purdue University, and from there I went to Florida State for a season, and then out to Los Angeles at USC for 3 years. Then I went to Wisconsin for 3 years, then to Wichita State for 5 years, then to North Texas for a year, Flagler College as a head coach for 10 seasons, then back to my alma mater, University of Florida, for 3 years, and presently at Longwood University.
My privilege and my joy to welcome and introduce our new head women's basketball coach, Erica Lang Montgomery.
Mostly what I'm very proud of is how she gets into the community.
It's no secret about that. When she took the job at Longwood, she actually gave me my first opportunity when it comes to being in the college coaching field.
She's already here a year before I got here, but then I do the same thing. They know my wife, they know Erica, and I just piggyback that. And she introduced me to a lot of people, and I like to meet people.
Well, going into this year, I had already set a goal for myself that I wanted to be Defensive Player of the Year. So telling Coach E that, and the coach that she's not gonna let you forget it. So every single practice I had, if I wasn't living up to a Defensive Player of the Year practice, like pressuring the ball 100%, she would remind me every single time, and she just never let me not give 100% every single day. And that just leads into the game. You get what you put in. So her pushing me every day in practice really, really helped, and her reminding me of everything that I wanted.
Outside of coaching, Coach Erica's very chill. I like to tell people it's like a hidden skill, hidden talent of hers. She can cook amazing. I love to eat her food, especially because it's free. But no, she's quite the character. She's like a little comedian, I like to call her, but she's full of personality. She's great in the kitchen, but she also does gardening. But yeah, I mean, she's just a pretty chill, lax individual.
It was exciting getting my 150th win. It wasn't something that I knew was coming. I wasn't keeping track of it. So it was a really cool surprise when the team surprised me after our game. And it just means that I've had the opportunity to coach some really wonderful student athletes.
With Longwood and its post players out.
Adriana Ship Davis gets her shooting percentage numbers, and that's where that three-point defense especially will come in handy. Chardonnay Hartley.
When I found out I had been named Coach of the Year, it was just a tremendous, I guess, accomplishment, just not for myself, but for our staff. We came into the season with an expectation to be better than we were the year before, and so didn't know what that was going to look like and how much better that improvement was going to be. And so as the season went, it was clear that we were having a great year, and it was really nice to be recognized by my peers and colleagues in the Big South with that award. Getting a contract extension is something that all coaches look forward to. It means that you're doing a good job, and the administrators at your university respect the job that you're doing. And so I'm very thankful, a lot of gratitude. It means a lot to myself, my family, my staff, our program, that I have the opportunity to continue to lead this program and take us to hopefully a Big South championship in the years to come.
Reading is what opens the doors for anything you're going to do in life. It's how you take in information. It's how you think critically. It's how you explore the world.
I'd always loved reading. It has been a huge part of my life always. And I started to volunteer at a children's library in Charlotte County. And we had a little Post-it note packet on the desk. And whenever a kid would come in, we were supposed to do a little tick on the Post-it note pad. And there were days where I would have no ticks on the pad. It really confused me as to why there were no kids. And so I thought, well, this isn't right. So I did a lot of research. I found out that 1 in 5 adults in Southside Virginia is functionally illiterate. I found out that we are the poorest and least educated region of the state, which I did not know. You know, the prospects of becoming a reader are so much lower if you don't come from a reading home. And if that sort of thing just doesn't come together, then you're not going to become a reader. Your chances are very slim. You can learn to read at school. The mechanics of reading are there. But there's a big difference between knowing how to do something and then doing it. I did a lot of legwork. I talked to a lot of schools, tried to figure out what was going on there. There's so much red tape involved with working within the school system. Teachers can only do so much. You know, I teach now myself, and there's never enough time. There's never enough time to give each kid. There's never enough time to do all the things you want to do. And so I thought, well, what can I do to add to the resources for these children. What can we do to stand in the gap for these kids? And I thought, what if I could make the greatest field trip in the world? And so I thought, well, I'll start the Virginia Children's Book Festival. We're not a literacy organization. We don't teach kids how to read. What we want to do is create a desire for kids to read. And so we want to create that culture in Virginia. We want to create a culture of literacy, a culture of reading in Virginia. We want every kid, regardless of circumstance, to become a lifelong reader. That's our goal. That's our mission.
I can't stress enough how important reading is, and I think it needs to be told to kids probably in a new way, because I think all my life we were told, oh, reading is fundamental, but I think kids need to be shown in as many ways as possible why reading is important. It really is the building blocks to everything, even outside of your school learning. If you become a reader, you will always be a knowledge seeker.
And it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, because I didn't think anybody would say no. I mean, how could anybody say no? You know, it's for the kids. Again, I'd never been to a book festival before, which I think actually helped me a lot, because the way the Virginia Children's Book Festival developed, it's very different from other book festivals, but it took several years. I met with a state senator who told me, no thanks, we're happy with the way things are. Of course, that just made me more adamant that it was gonna happen. So one day, after probably, I guess, 4 years of planning and talking and reaching out, we went to Longwood. We came to Longwood, and we met with Susie Palmer, who was the dean of the library at that time. And so I went in and we sort of gave our little spiel, had a little packet, and Susie said, okay. And we said, what? And she said, yeah. She said, sure, how about October? And so I remember saying to Susie, I said, okay, that's great. Thank you for saying yes, but where do I go for the big yes? She said, I am the big yes. And I was like, okay, that's good to know. Everything really ramped up, and I started to figure out that, boy, this costs money and this takes a lot of planning. And at that time, I didn't have the relationships with Longwood that I do now. So it was sort of, it was very guerrilla action, making sure everything happened. And I just sort of looked at the books my own kids enjoyed, and I just cold called authors. And I said, hey, this is getting started. Would you be interested? And how much do you charge? But we had about 700 kids that first year. So 700 kids the first year, I think, was a success for any new event. And it really took just a couple of years for us. We were up to 6,000, then 8,000, then 10,000, just year after year. And our relationships grew, and the authors grew, and we sort of figured out who we wanted to be and what we were doing. And it has just exploded since then, really. And I mean, every year I'm amazed. I like to sit and watch the buses come and unload. And, you know, we have a mile of school buses that come in every day. And it's just thousands and thousands and thousands of children. And they're so happy to be here and to be a part of it. And I just pinch myself because I can't believe it, really.
The importance, I think, of reading for children is like me, I didn't read when I was little, and all I did was memorize books, and therefore I had to repeat second grade because I couldn't read. And I think it's really important to recognize that they're different kind of learners. And I was a visual learner, and some other kids are visual. They're going to learn differently. They're going to learn to read differently. But once they do, they can see themselves in books. And I think it's so important for kids to be able to see themselves in books, because I think it makes them better, stronger human beings.
The way we do things is different because we realize that we have to work extra hard to get kids' attention, to keep it, to get them to want to read more. And so we design our programming so it's really interactive. You know, we get a featured illustrator, and then we plan a lot of programming around that illustrator. He designs a mural that then the entire community gets to come paint with the illustrator and with Monty. And when that's finished, it's donated to a different organization that we've chosen. The very first one we ever did was with Todd Parr, and that's hanging at the Children's Hospital at VCU. It's hanging in their lobby. I can't say enough about what that brings to the festival that other places just don't have.
What is really important is to make reading available to children as early as possible, to make books available to children as young as can be, because access to those books, it's one thing to be able to read, it's another thing to be able to have access to material to read. That's where a festival like this is critically important.
Access, desire, and diversity. So a kid can want to read, they can have the mechanical skill to read, but if they don't have access to books, then they're not going to be able to read. We want kids to not just see themselves in books, but to see other people in books. It leads to empathy, it leads to understanding of oneself and of others. And so, you know, when a kid can connect with the book, and it doesn't have to be about your race or your gender or, you know, anything else. It doesn't have to be about that. It can be just about, you know, a kid who thinks like you do. If kids can see that and identify, then they just feel more whole. And that's what books can do for you. Not only can they help you dream bigger and take you outside of yourself, but they can help you stay with yourself and be comfortable there.
I just go back to when I was a kid. Basically, reading was my biggest form of joy and escape. And through books, we're able to go into different worlds, our imaginations are just let loose. But we can also learn a lot about ourselves and the world we live in by reading. And so I do think it's important for kids to read about characters who are both like themselves, so they can see themselves represented, but also kids who are different than them, so they can have like this developing empathy for other people.
For us, it's the right book in the hands of the right kid at the right time. When you see kids here, and you see them with an author who's taking time to talk to them, when you hear somebody say, a kid say, oh, Mr. Todd's coming in about a month, and you realize that Todd Parr, who is one of the most successful children's book authors in the world, has seen these kids every year for 11 years. He knows them by name. He asks them how school is going, even if they're, you know, too old to go to his sessions. When you see that they count these people as a part of their lives, when you see that high schoolers who were gonna drop out or were not gonna go to college ask a book festival volunteer, where is the admissions office? Can you take me there? I love what is happening here. When there are kids who say to Sophie Blackall, can I be an illustrator too? I didn't know girls could do that. When you see that all day, every day, that's not numbers. You know, I mean, these are kids whose lives have been expanded in ways that we couldn't predict, that they didn't expect. When I give a book to a child and they say, can I keep this? I've never had a book of my own before. That's where I count success. I mean, all the numbers in the world, they're very meaningful, but that's how I count success.
when I think about her legacy, I think about what she must have endured. I think about the times that I've gotten a chance to hear her story and share what her experience was like and how she just powered through. And, how when she was doing what she was doing, she wasn't thinking about the hundreds of, young students of color, young Black students specifically, that were following her footsteps. She was trying to get education. And so I think about that often, number one, and how it's very, very recent. And number two, how she is walking history and did so without even thinking twice about the magnitude of her choice.
I attended elementary school in Richmond, Virginia. And of course, I attended elementary school in the 60s. And in the 60s, Virginia was going through massive resistance. They did not want to integrate their schools. After Brown versus the Board of Education, Virginia decided that it really didn't want to get on board with that. And we got to freedom of choice in Virginia. And at that point, I was in elementary school in Richmond, about to go into junior high school. And so there were discussions about what would happen with students as they entered high school. And this freedom of to choose the high school that you wanted to attend, this freedom of choice, really wasn't freedom for Black students. We got chosen about this person will go to this white high school, and so forth and so on. And so I was chosen as one of the people to go to Thomas Jefferson High School in Richmond at that time. So we were going to be among the first to integrate the schools. Well, in the summer before I was to enter Thomas Jefferson, my mother decided to move back to Charlottesville, or the area around Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where I was born. And I went back to a segregated high school. It was Jackson P. Burley High School in Charlottesville. And during my junior year, the decision was made by the politicians at that time to close the segregated high schools, and the Black segregated high schools were basically what was closed. And I attended Albemarle High School after that closed. So in my senior year, Black high school closed. I was transferred to Albemarle High School. And there I met Virginia Doffelmeyer. So that long story gets me to Virginia Doffelmeyer. And Virginia Doffelmeyer was a 1940s, I'm not sure which year exactly, but a 1940s graduate of Longwood. And Virginia Doffelmeyer called me into her office and said, we need to talk about where you're going to college. And it was always assumed, by my teachers, it was assumed by my mother, that I was going to go to college. And I guess because they all assumed that, I assumed that too. I don't know why. I didn't have the money to do it. I don't know why they thought that. But anyway, it was assumed that I would go to college. And so my guidance counselor, Mrs. Virginia Doffelmeyer, said, I think you should go to Longwood. I think you need to integrate Longwood. And for her, this little white lady to put me in her vehicle and drive me to Longwood in Prince Edward County, where they closed the schools for 5 years to avoid integration, that was quite a statement. But she did it. She brought me here to a campus and said, this is what you're wanting to, this is what you're going to do. Not this is what you want to do. This is what you're going to do. And that I needed to be the one to take responsibility to pave the way for other people. And she sold me on that. And so I applied to Longwood and got accepted, and the rest is history.
We were the only two Black students who lived on campus, and I guess it just made sense for them to put us together. it was great, right off the bat, we were able to learn about each other and just, if I remember correctly, her mom was with her and we went shopping for curtains. I could be wrong, but I sort of remember the interaction with her mother. It was like we had known each other forever.
I transferred from North Carolina College to Monmouth, so I was starting in as a sophomore. And before I moved in, I got a call from Longwood, and they said, since you're a minister's daughter, would you mind rooming or being in a suite with a black student? And I thought that was the most unusual question. I wouldn't have thought twice if they had put me there without the phone call. But it was an interesting introduction. And so we were suite mates, and I'm glad that there were 3 rooms, because that gave us 6 people to be with, and it was fun to have that many together. I took 1 class with her, and it was a very hard class for me, and I was really amazed by her and her intelligence. So she was very smart, and I remember studying a lot, and I don't remember how much she studied, but I was very impressed to share that class with her. Actually, a little embarrassed.
And so I knew that coming into this situation, I would be among the minority. I didn't know exactly what that minority would look like, but knew that I would be among the minority. But I was in a college prep course or courses when I was at Albemarle High School, and in many of the classes that I attended, I was the only black student. And so that it was not unusual, but it was just one more of those situations where I was going to be one or among the few. And so that's going through my mind. I'm going through the thought process of I'm entering a community where it could be dangerous. There's the possibility that someone is not going to want me there so much in that community that I could be harmed. I mean, I live in America. I expect those things. I got to class. There were professors who were very welcoming, that I engage with in a positive way, and a couple of them are friends today. That's how positive that experience was. There were others who clearly did not want me there and made no bones about it. So I encountered the range of things, but that's also what I encountered in the community. There were people who were welcoming and there were people who weren't. So, again, nobody asked me to leave their classroom. There was nothing that was really outrageous about the treatment. That didn't happen. But it's real clear when you're not welcome. You know that. You can feel that. But on the flip side of that positive thing made Longwood a positive experience for me as well.
We met through Diana. Diana had been my suite mate in summer school at Longwood, and then she and Cookie were in the same dorm, suite mates or roommates. Suite mates, I think. So we ended up all becoming friends, and we lived in the same suite junior and senior year. She's a hard worker. She's very smart. We were roommates also after Longwood but had both started to work. She always went in earlier than anybody else. She stayed later than anybody else. She's very dedicated, very devoted. She's just a wonderful friend.
She truly is the embodiment of a trailblazer. I think we talk all the time about citizen leaders and making an impact on campus, and she was that for Longwood, the original citizen leader. It couldn't have been easy, be the first Black woman to graduate from this college, but she did it. So I think for her, it's just like a legacy of being a trailblazer and embodying what it means to be a Longwood student.
One word to describe Miss Scott? Man, that's tough. You ever met Miss Scott?
Empowering.
She's a walking heart.
I think she's inspiring.
Plan.
Awesome.
I've always said this was a hidden gem, and I really believe that. The people. Throughout our 7 years, we've really been fortunate to have really good people.
I feel like the people is what makes Longwood Longwood.
Longwood changed me as a person a lot, believe it or not. When I came there, I had some bad habits and issues that I didn't really see in myself at first, but I'd say the staff helped me understand it more and how to deal with it more and just be a better person overall, especially as a leader. So I never had to lead a team in my Division I career until last year, or the past year I played, but they changed me a lot as a person.
Striving to be a team and to collectively pursue excellence, and to be a group of guys or a group of young men who are just constantly trying to reach their potential and give everything their best. We say pour into the root, and to try to control what they can control, and as a unit they can reach heights that they couldn't reach on their own.
And so I hope we have a team that reflects, that's energetic, that's positive, that's passionate, and that is very loving, and that is showcased, and people see that.
I love Longwood. I love Farmville. I love this community. Longwood is a really special place because it's a place that's overlooked. It's, when you actually get to the substance of the place, you get to the substance of the people, it's a really special place. And so for me, one of my great joys was always trying to help people see how great of a place this really was, whether it was trying to recruit people, whether it was trying to showcase the basketball program to shed a positive light. But the number of people who, when they asked me about our lives here in Farmville, they asked me about Longwood, they were always surprised that, hey, do you like living in such a small place? And that, and it was always like, it's great. It's wonderful. And when people talk about Longwood, they would come here and be completely shocked, because it was very rarely what they had envisioned or what they anticipated.
The people. I felt like, people get tied up into Farmville and there's not much to do. And I felt like I did at first when I first got to Longwood. But the more I've been here, the more I realized the connections I built.
It's been phenomenal. It's been really rewarding because I've gotten to see somebody really mature right in front of my eyes. Ronnie was like this eager puppy dog when he first got here, and he was so just a ball of energy and almost skipping around the hall. I think he was excited to be a Division I coach. He was so much wanting to just kind of please not only the head coach, but all the assistants, the administrators, and then just to watch him year after year after year, just really starting to mature, into a professional, where he was confident in his own opinions and his own views.
He played a huge part. He's probably the reason why I came to Longwood. So I didn't know too much about Coach Griff, but I just knew some things he told me, but me and Coach Griff never really text on a day-to-day basis. But me and Ronnie did. We built a relationship. That was probably one of my favorite coaches in my 2 years I played there.
Ronnie was a big part of me coming here because, like I said, he was the first person to reach out, and we had built that relationship before I even talked to Coach Griff. So, just him being, his normal self, energetic, and I could just tell, he was honest and truthful with what he was saying.
Particularly going back to last year, I knew that Ronnie had been up most of the night with one of our injured players at the hospital, Elijah Tucker, and it meant so much to me. It was like a great culmination or encapsulation of just his heart of driving 45 minutes to a hospital, spending time with a player overnight, and then coming right back and winning the championship.
I think a lot of people make mistakes of they want to do everything different, they want to change things. And if it didn't work out, if I had a house and there was rain leaking from the roof, I need to change some things right away. But we got a beautiful house built. We got a lot of things going very well. We've been very successful in how we do things from the broad perspective. And so I think it's also, from the house analogy, you want to get in a house and you don't want to change everything, then you sit in it for 6 months and you're like, hold on, I actually would rather done this to the bathroom, I'd rather done this to the kitchen. And so where if you sit in it, you start to figure out what you really want. And so some things I think what's going to be important is we got to teach what we know. And I got to teach what I believe in right away. And we'll do that. And I think over the years, you'll start to see some difference and some things will change. I think the one thing that you're going to see change is that, and I've said this over and over, me and Griff are yin and yang. And that's why I was his second longest tenured, assistant, because what he was, some things where he had deficiencies at, I could build in too. And things that I'm deficient in, he can plug my holes. And so I think it was a great yin and yang. And I think you will see, a sense of, I think the program is all about love, but I think, for me, that's, I have a different way of showing that. And I think you'll see that a lot, and I think that's not a bad thing, but I just think it's something that I feel how I want the guys in the program to reflect. The program's always going to take on, the personality of your head coach. And so, and whatever that personality is, the players are going to take on that personality, no matter who they are. And so I think when you see this team, I would think that when people speak of me, I think they'll use the terms of energetic and positive and loving and caring and relational.
I think just running a program and getting to see all aspects of a program is really has been really valuable. Man, I've failed so much in my 7 years in how I've coached or I've handled things. And so, I think so often we learn through our mistakes. And, I came in here a very inexperienced coach, and so you stub your toe a lot. And so I think I learned a lot over the 7 years by making so many different mistakes. And so I think, in all honesty, having the opportunity to kind of try to build, not from the floor up, but to build the program, I got a lot of reps and experience that I may not have had if the program were already humming along. And so I think that was a real valuable experience for me, although it was painful at times.
And I think what I've learned most from him is that really how to build the organization. And in this new landscape, I mean, you're talking about organizations now, with the NIL piece. And I think he really taught me how to run an organization from top to bottom. And it's so much that goes into it. Even during the interview process, the basketball is 20% of what I've done in the past 4 weeks. And so he taught me a lot of that 80%. And really allowed to give me the experience and responsibilities to grow in those areas, to be prepared, to take over, here at Longwood.
I want to be remembered as more than just a basketball player. Because, sometimes people get caught up in you just being a player and not as you as a person. But I just want to be known that I was a good individual there. I always made a good impact in the community, where I've been with the kids' camps or helping with First Boys Club. I just want to be remembered as a good human being.
I want to be remembered as a good human being. I feel like that's the most important thing to me. Yeah, I can dunk a basketball and do all this stuff, but what drives me, what makes me happy is hearing that, Elijah was good at basketball, but he was a good person. He really cared about people. He was easy to talk to, fun to be around, always smiling. I feel like being my goal in life is to be the greatest human I can be. It's cool, basketball's cool and all, but I won't be able to play basketball for the rest of my life. Who will Elijah be after basketball? I think that's something I want to be remembered by, is just being a great human.
I'm in recovery. And I was addicted to opiates. I ended up intravenously doing heroin. I was incarcerated. So CPS ended up taking my kids. The court system offered UNC Horizons as a program to help me get sober and also get my kids back. And so I took it.
Horizons to me is help, hope, and healing. If you're a man using a substance, you're stigmatized. If you're a woman using a substance, you're double stigmatized. If you're a pregnant woman using a drug, you're the bottom of the barrel. That is one of the most stigmatized and discriminated population groups that we have. Because everything that I have learned about addiction is from the patients. And they have stories that are powerful, that are resilient, that are hopeful.
Actually, our patients are amazing and wonderful, and I talk about all the time, these are some of the strongest people I've ever met.
They've been through a tremendous amount of trauma and abuse, but their perseverance, their resilience inspires me every day.
And some of the most resilient women I've ever known who inspire me.
being from the legal criminal system, where maybe they're on probation or parole and they have an enormous number of actions that they have to take and monitoring that they have to go through.
Elizabeth and I have a shared clinic day once a month that we do here at the Horizons program, so that the mothers can come with the babies from right where they are instead of having to travel across town to my office.
There's the economic challenge of how do I find a safe place to live if I don't have a job? I can't get a job because I have a criminal record. I can't get an apartment or a safe place to live because I don't have good credit because of the things that I did. Maybe my identity was stolen. Maybe I had to take out credit cards to support the life that I was trying to have for survival. So the economic challenges are huge.
You look at the clients when they first come in, they don't really know that much about responsibility, about budgeting, about shopping, about planning meals. They don't really know the basics of living life on life's terms on a daily basis.
The social stigma, again, is also huge. I would say challenges in parenting. If many of our patients have been a part of child protective services and foster care themselves and didn't necessarily have positive parenting models growing up. So there's still challenges, and as my children get older, how do I know the best ways to care for them?
And so understanding that this is someone whose background may include abuse, neglect, or other stressors that led to their developing a substance use disorder really helps frame the approach to care and foster that environment of trust, because you're caring for that person as they are and for who they are.
So my main goals is to stay clean, and then to graduate this program and to live life sober. There is a saying in the NA and AA community, don't give up before the miracle happens. Had a recent story with a patient, or an experience with a patient who came to us for prenatal care while she was pregnant, came faithfully to all of her appointments, but really struggled with, we got her opioid use disorder stabilized, but she's continued to use other things and was really having a hard time getting stable. But came to all of her appointments, was really motivated, was a little resistant, had reasons why she couldn't go to treatment. During her pregnancy, she delivered. After she delivered, unfortunately, Child Protective Services got involved because the baby tested positive for illicit substances. She still was ambivalent about coming to treatment, but she came to see us every single week in clinic. And she would talk to us, and she would have a reason. She would, maybe the reason for the week was that she needed to see the dentist, and she would say before she left, "I promise next week I'm going to bring my bags. I promise I'm going to be ready to go." And the next week would come, and she would come to clinic, and she wouldn't have her bags. And so we just kept meeting with her and talking to her. And finally, it felt like forever, but it was really only a couple of months that this was going on. I think because we really were wanting her to go to treatment and not have the worst repercussions, which is lose custody of all of her children. And she finally said, I'm ready to go. And so she came to our program, and the first time I saw her, she jumped up out of her chair and gave me a big hug, and she was like, "Thank you so much for not giving up on me." And then she said, "Horizon saved my life."
One patient that I'm thinking about was a woman who had 2 children. She was in a severely domestic abusive relationship. She became pregnant with her 3rd child. She was beaten up, thrown down the stairs, almost left for dead. Came in to Horizons looking for help and support, and she was scared. She was scared to come in. She was scared what was going to happen to her children. Were they going to be taken away from her? But they weren't, right? We could tell her, you get to move into your own apartment with your children. And she started crying. When we moved the children into the apartment, their eyes just flew open wide and they're like, we get our own room? We've never had a room. This is the nicest place we've ever lived. And through that, she got to know herself. She didn't even know what her favorite color was. She didn't know what she liked to eat because she had been dictated to her whole life. And so she found herself, she found her relationship with her children. Her children came in scared, clinging, not really speaking, not meeting their developmental milestones. By the time she graduated, her children are not just meeting their milestones, they were exceeding their milestones.
Say I'm nearly 9 months clean. I've been in the program for at least 5 months.
And what I wanted to do was get a job where I can help someone else in recovery. And so after being in Chapel Hill for almost 10 years, I said, well, let me try Rising. See could I help some of the young ladies that are here.
Helped me reconnect with family and friends that I lost touch with. Recovery for me, what looks like my kids. Me having my kids back.
UNC Horizons is trauma-informed care.
Horizons is changing lives.
UNC Horizons is people who care.
Horizons is changing the world.
Horizons to me is help, hope, and support.